Welcome to ChiroSecure's Empowering Women in Chiropractic, the Facebook Live show for successful women by successful women, proving once again women make it happen. Join us each week as we bring you the best in business growth, practice management, social media marketing, networking, leadership, and lots more. If it's about women in practice and business, you'll hear it here. Now, join today's host, Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp, as she talks impact, exposure, and systems. And now, here's Dr. Nathalie.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Empowering Women in Chiropractic. My name is Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp, and I will be your host for today. And I'm really excited to have on the show today Dr. Liz Anderson-Peacock, who I'm honored to call a friend and also a mentor. Welcome, Liz, and thank you so much for being on the show. I'm excited. We kind of talked of what we were going to talk about, but let's see where this goes. So, first of all, Liz, for the people watching who may not know who you are, why don't you tell us a little bit more about your journey in chiropractic, and then we're going to get going with that.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. I'm honored, and it is a privilege. So thank you so much, Nathalie. So my, I guess, journey, as you will, is I've been a chiropractor since 1986. And I have kind of done everything, I think is the best way to say, in chiropractic. I've been an associate. I ran my own practice. I've had associates in a practice. I sold a big practice. I'm mostly known for pediatrics, and how I jumped into pediatrics is a whole other story, which I think is still interesting. I might circle around to that. And now I really just have a little boutique practice out of my home, where I see really complex pediatric cases, and I do a lot of speaking. I speak for the ICPA. I speak for a number of other groups in pediatrics. I've published in that area, so on and so forth. So what I really love about it is it lets me still speak from the stage of being a practicing chiropractor, and the parents that I share the stories of their children with are really excited to allow that information also to go out so that we can all become better chiropractors. My initial journey into chiropractic was kind of interesting because when I graduated, I'd really lost my why and who I wanted to be in chiropractic. So my first 2 years were really tough, and they were so tough that I remember in about 1987, at the end of 87, early 88, I actually didn't even know if I wanted to stay being a chiropractor. And it was sort of one of those times where you come up to this pivotal moment, and which route do you take, and you just don't know. And I remembered sitting in my office at the time, and I'm looking at my library, and I see this piece of garbage, this piece of paper that's folded between two books. So I yank it out, go to throw it out, but something sort of stopped me. I opened it up, and if you can believe it, it's my letter on why I wanted to become a chiropractor that I'd written 6 years before. And in it, it was talking about body function, connecting mind and body, and all of this stuff. And I remember sitting down and weeping in that moment on, that's what I wanted it to be. That's what my heart tells me, yet I'm way over here. What do I do? And at that point, I was in a relationship, and I actually left the practice, left the relationship, went to the city that I wanted to go to, sink or swim, found a mentor, which was absolutely monumental in my life, and literally springboard effect into this discovery of the incredible gift that we have as chiropractors for humanity. So it was one of those pivotal moments, that could have gone either way.
That's cool. Now, you did have, a big practice and so forth with pediatrics. So what made you, because there's all sorts of, you know, age group listening to this, and some of the people listening might be, they've been in chiropractic for many years. Some are maybe thinking of tapering down. Some are growing their practice. What made you decide to go from the big practice to the small boutique? And we'll touch on that because we're going to talk about your health challenge later. But, you know, what was the, because I know that you've done that also to be able to teach more and so forth. So, because I know a lot of us are, like you said, it's such a gift that we have to be able to change people's lives with our hands, and it almost becomes addictive. And it's hard, I know, for me to step away from practice because it's just so rewarding. So what led you from one to the other?
Yeah, so it was an interesting journey. And what was happening is I had a really busy practice, and then I was teaching 12-hour continuing ed programs on weekends, and it just wasn't sustainable. Even though, you know, I have a lot of energy, but it was one of my friends who looked at me and sort of like, it was that moment that you get hit between the eyes of like, duh. And I mean, it literally would be, I see a lot of people during the week. I fly out, give a 12-hour program in LA, fly back to Toronto on the red eye, get into Toronto at 7 a.m. I'm back at my office at noon. And this was going on and on. And I mean, I loved it. But I was sort of, which direction do I go in? Right. And rather than sort of picking a direction, the universe dropped a bunch of things in my lap. And so I developed this health challenge with my right foot, which ended up being defined. It took 13 professionals to figure out what it finally was. And it took about 5 years to figure out what it was. And so I took that where, and specifically, I might as well just say to the audience now, so it was defined at that moment. And I do like to avoid labels, but there was a label put on it, which was a synovial sarcoma. For those that might not be chiros and assistants, that's a form of a cancer. And I found a way to deal with it naturally for quite a long period of time, which was awesome. And then we can get it back to that later on. But what was interesting is I had, without really looking at it, what I'd done is I've just compressed my day to make it even more concentrated, but I wasn't really slowing down. And that was really, in retrospect, a lesson that I thought I was slowing down. I was just as busy as I was in a different way. So then what happened to me in 2009 is I was gifted with another opportunity from the universe saying, well, if you're not slowing down with this one. And I was up at our cottage coming down a rock face. It wasn't a big rock face. I just had this little jump at the bottom. But to avoid the tumor in my right foot, which is in the sole of my foot, I landed on my left leg, like my left knee, but it was mossy and I slipped. So I hyperextended my knee. So I snapped my ACL, blow out my medial meniscus, and I'm laying in the dirt with now a knee on the opposite leg where I can't move. And so I remember being absolutely so angry with myself in that moment. And then I thought, wow, this universe is really knocking me between the eyes, because now I got to be out of practice. And I was fortunate enough that two of my associates at that time were my stepdaughter and son-in-law. So they took over the practice, and they took that on and then morphed it into their own practice because they had slightly different things they wanted to do. And that allowed them to shine in the way that they wanted to express chiropractic. I kind of had that space to bump out to then do a surgery on my knee to reconstruct the knee, which I needed to do. And that is, lo and behold, why I started to come back into my create a home practice. So there was a couple of interesting things sort of in this process. When I stepped out of practice, the shocker for me was defining who I was. So if I wasn't practicing, who was I? Mm-hmm. And that was huge for me because I didn't realize how much I defined myself by service, defined myself by chiropractic, active chiropractic, defined myself by teaching. So there was all these internal struggles that took me a while to sort of sort out. And the gift for me to be able to do that was meditation. And it took me years to get really into meditation. And that has been the most remarkable thing subsequent to that time.
Because I think the point you touched on is so crucial. If you're stepping out of practice or slowing down, we identify so much with what you do. So, thank you for bringing this point up. And like you said, meditation was any other tips that you can give people that are listening to, because I know I struggle with that as well,
right.
Especially the longer you've been in practice. So when you don't have your hands on people, I guess also with your speaking, you must have known that you were impacting a lot of patients, not with your hands, but indirectly. I'm sure that played quite a bit of a role as well.
Well, I think that the defining moment for me was recognizing it's not what I was doing that defines me, it's who I'm being that defines me. And so who am I through my heart, and how do I express that? And so when I'm teaching, I'm still teaching through the philosophy that I understand, that sort of holistic, vitalistic philosophy that's being expressed, and keeping true to the principles and living by the principles, and also looking at where was I not living by the principles, and for me, it was a matter of this time urgency of getting more done and the need to get more done, and not really recognizing until more recently that, sometimes when you slow down, you get rid of all the superficial things and you get much more zeroed into what's important.
I know from you and I talking previously, you've done a lot of work with Dr. Joe Dispenza, right? I think you really digged into that aspect. Any other tools that you've used to get in that headspace?
Yeah, well, again, yoga, I've done a lot of Bikram yoga, and I love that because it's being present in the moment, and then fine tuning, and then just recognizing, where am I today? And, oh, isn't that interesting? And from where I am today, where would I like to be? So that has been really helpful. Joe's work has been instrumental for me. And then I also did a year of training with Jack Canfield. And that was also very instrumental, because I think the biggest thing that I got from him was looking at, where are you now, where do you want to be, and what do you need to do, and who do you need to be to take those baby steps to get there. And then I also did a year of professional coaching, where you learn how to coach. And in that process, you learn to find the right questions. And then in asking them, if you're going to ask them to other people, how do you apply them to yourself? And so there's a lot of introspection, and you've got to create space in the day. I don't even want to say it becomes part of what you do, is create the space for that piece of just inner reflection. And it's not.
Because I think, what you said too earlier with compacting more in a shorter time and not slowing down, you saw me going like this, because I can so relate. I'm adding to my plate right now, and just, condensing everything and really feeling that. Now, from a practice perspective, just because you've been in practice for 30 years, tell us what you love about it and what you want others to know.
So what I love about it is when you see the lights come on in someone's eyes. And what I love about it, especially in pediatrics, and I'm a firm believer that many chiros could use a lot more training in pediatrics rather than just putting their hands on children. It's incredible when we adjust how that, I'm going to get technical, the mechanoreceptor activity changes what goes on in that brain, makes the brain more efficient, and then the impact with the efferent piece changes as well. And I have really learned not to create expectations for people. My goal is to say, this is what I do, this is what I'm looking for. The body will know what it needs to heal first. Let's see how this unfolds. And we go from there. And I think that's a beautiful piece. So let me give you an example. I have this little child right now who is amazing. She came in bilateral across eyes. I'm going to write her case up. Her EEG was all over the map, especially in the occipital lobe. She was born a couple months premature, and she was having seizures and on medications, yada, yada, yada. So we start adjusting her. Her right eye immediately locks in. So it now recognizes that there's a person in front of her. She starts to emote and connect with everyone around her. It's almost like she's got connected to this world, because before her eyes were all over the map, and now it's zeroed in. She's developing really well. She just, December the 14th, had another visit at Toronto Hospital for Sick Kids. The EEG was normal. And they're like, what have you done? And they're weaning her off some seizure meds. They're not putting her on a different set of seizure meds. And that is the beauty of chiropractic. And so what I really want, especially the younger group of chiropractors, to know, because I think they get distracted with this other stuff that's out there, is learn how to adjust. What's the best way to adjust, have a number of tools in your toolbox that you can pick and choose from, and then know when not to adjust and really understand the philosophy and honor that. And then if you need to add other things in later to support the adjustment, absolutely. But start with one thing first. That's really the scientific method, right? Mm-hmm. Do one thing, measure the result, and then add something in else to support. But I think we get ourselves very confused if we do 5 or 6 things. And I understand where that comes from. We really just want to give and help as quick as we can. But then parents get confused as to what's helped, and we get confused because we don't really know. When we can stick to one thing and honor that, since we are a chiropractor and nobody else does what we do, if we stay true to our philosophy, then that's what the public learns too.
I have a question on that, Liz, because we're in the same province, right? So under the same rules and regulation. And I love what you just said, that we say to a patient, but how do you go from there and make sure that you cover all your bases from what your college wants you to say or so forth. Now, I'll give you an example. I don't take worker compensation cases, and I haven't in years, but I have 2 patients that got injured, and they are longstanding patients. So I just didn't feel comfortable. But I was on the phone with the board and the workers' compensation board, and I swear to God, my blood pressure I was just busting, because it was just so segmental, and why are you touching any other parts and so forth. So I'm asking for myself, and hopefully others have the question, but how do you go from knowing what we know, that the body, you do the adjustment and the body will do the rest, to having to confine within a system that is so darn looking at things as not the sum of its part, but as as an organ or as a segment. So please tell me, because I get so frustrated.
Yeah, it's interesting. I really don't have that issue. And I guess how I approach it is I say that the nervous system goes everywhere, and how we have an impact on the nervous system is through the vertebrae, through the spinal column. And the spinal column is one system. So what happens in one area counterbalances and happens in another. Therefore, we have to look at the whole thing. Yeah. So the mechanistic piece is can be approached from that. And then we can move it into we're only uncovering now the impact of what this is having in brain and development. So, I'm a firm believer that we need to be really darn good in doing our histories and doing our evaluations and coming up with our plans and explaining that to our patients and having them fully understand what the goals are. Yeah. And then we pick a time that seems appropriate, that we've agreed upon with the patient, and let's reassess. Let's see what's changed. What do we now need to do? And my communication really isn't that different for anybody. It really doesn't change.
Well, I think the patients understand it's the other parts of the systems that don't, and it just gets me. It just gets me mad. So.
Right.
Now let's talk about, you had, as you mentioned, a major health challenge, amputation below the knee, and I, visited you, I guess a month ago already. Do you mind giving a bit of history with the tumor, the process?
Sure.
What went through your mind in making the decisions that you made? Because I have to tell you guys, this lady is one inspirational lady.
Oh, thank you. So, everything was going well with my leg and with my foot and everything. And then I was in Australia hiking in February, and I was on a particularly difficult climb. And you know what? My instinct told me I shouldn't do it, but I didn't want to disappoint. And so off I went. And lo and behold, I'm going up this steep incline, and where my tumor is, it's like right on the sole of the foot, or was on the sole of the foot. And it had grown between a number of the bones. But what had happened as I'm going up this hill is I hyperextended my foot like this. So I think there was two things. One is that there was mechanical failure of the foot because the presence of the tumor weakened that arch, and it had eaten through some muscle, so I literally had mechanical failure, and I hyperextended, which opened up the tumor. The pain, I can't even describe the pain. It was really not fun, and I couldn't get. I had to walk out. There was no way I couldn't walk out. So we made do with that. And then the pain didn't really dissipate. So in April, I saw my physician, and actually I called her and I said, look, I think I just really need to get another MRI. I'm feeling the tumor more coming down. And I just had this instinct that it just wasn't good. And so lo and behold, we get the MRI back and the tumor is growing. But there was a couple of other things too that made this decision easier. One was I do these meditations and I scan my body, and it was really, really hard for me to all of a sudden find my lower limb on the right side below the knee. It was like it was phasing out. The second thing is I do what's called mind movies. And if people are interested, they go to mindmovie.com. It's awesome. So what it is that you apply music to photos and affirmations, and it runs a program that you can watch over and over. And the photos that I had that represented what I want in my life and what I create in my life are things like joy, peace, love, exploration, travel, those kinds of things. And it just so happened every photograph that I used to represent that had a person in it, the way the photo was taken, you couldn't see my lower leg. So that was two. Go in to see my surgeon that I saw 9 years ago. And I'm like, hi, how are you? And he goes, great. How are you? I'm like, well, and he looked at the MR and he's like, Liz, we have one option and this is it. And it's a below the knee amputation. I wasn't surprised. I mean, I pretty much knew that's exactly what it was. So no meltdowns, no nothing. It was sort of like, you know what? And I will say that the pain was bad enough. I'm like, you know what? Not a problem. It was an odd thing, though, when you have to sign a consent form and it says, I choose to amputate below my knee. That was kind of a weird thing to kind of wrap around your head.
I bet.
But I think I was really prepared for it. And so it was difficult, but not, it really wasn't. And then I was at a retreat meditating in August. And that was also very interesting because I'm in this meditation for 4 hours. And halfway through the meditation, I literally go into, like, as chiros would know, a decerebrate cortical kind of positioning. So I'm internally rotating my arms and legs and I'm like vibrating on the floor because my autonomics are just resetting. And I had this presence come through me that said, whether you do or don't have a lower leg, you're whole. And I had this internal peace, that just this total relaxation and inner joy, that it was absolutely amazing. And then I've had a couple of other interesting things happen that from August through to November, when I had the amputation, that brought my pain level down. And that also threw me for a loop because literally 3-4 days before my amputation, I have no pain in my foot. And that was kind of my motivator for it. And I'm looking at my husband saying, like, which way do I go? And the mechanistic world, yeah, it's a tumor, it's getting bigger, but the quantum world is we live in possibility. And I also know that given the right conditions, the body has this ability to heal. So which is it? And I know I live in both worlds. We all live in both of those worlds. And it was a dear friend of mine. It was actually Gilles Lamarche, or it was Tom Press, and we mastermind on a regular basis. And the two of them both said to me at the same time, they said, but Liz, what if the foot is your subluxation? And I just went, all right, I'm good. So we're good to go. So I go into the hospital on Wednesday morning. It was the 22nd of November. And I come out without a foot, but interesting experience. I did post, as many people know, how I wanted to be treated if you were interacting with me. And my concern was that once people found out, there would be a trickle effect, and in people's good wishes, sometimes it can come across in a very different way than what I wanted. So what I asked for was what I wanted. See me as whole, vital, joy, doing all the things I love to do. What won't work for me is, oh my God, I feel so bad for you. Another cancer story. You're a victim, or this war, or something that just this battle was not going to work. So I wanted the other. And I just say, please, if you have a moment, send me love, send me joy, send me whatever. And I go into this hospital, my heart is open, I'm feeling awesome, zero fear, awesome. I sign into the hospital, and of course, the worst case scenario happens. They give me this form folded so you can't read it, and it's by the original clerk that sort of signs you in. Then you have to go to the 5th floor to go to the surgery floor. And of course, I look at it because I have to, and it says amputation, but of the wrong leg.
Oh my God. Oh my God.
I don't think there could be anything worse. So
no, I don't
my
think
open heart just went, and I went into, and so I went back to the clerk. I interrupted her. I really didn't care. And I said, this is incorrect, blah, 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 blah. I went and just, said, this is not correct. I need this changed. She says, well, I can't change it. Go to the 5th floor. That's it. There was no, let me walk you to the 5th floor. Let me figure out what's going on. It was, go to the 5th floor. They'll figure it out. So there's a procedural issue that I think is a great lesson there as well, in being responsible for people that are doing work downstream. Another story. So I go to the 5th floor, and I go in, and again, I'm just like a bull. Like, I'm just like right in here going to this front nurse. And I said, this is what it says. They've got the wrong leg. And I guess I'm terrified in that moment. And she shows me this other form, and she goes, Liz, this is what it actually has. And everything there had the right leg. When they do the checklist, the protocol is they have 3 completely different people asking you the same question within that time frame of pre-operation. So I had an OR nurse, I had my surgeon, and I had a third person that all go through the same thing. Please confirm it's your right leg. Point to your right leg. Do you have any allergies? If you need a transfusion, is this your signature that you would accept a transfusion? So it was all of that. So I felt very confident after that. And what was amazing then is I'm sitting, and I've got all this chemistry that's just fired off from my adrenaline. And it's like, I've got to let it go. And it was like, you know what? Just open up the heart and let all that love in. And it was awesome. It was all there. And I had an epidural. So when I come off the table without a leg, they're moving me from the OR table to the gurney. I literally am saying to the surgical team that's in the room, thanks, guys, that was awesome, and they're looking at me like, we don't get many like you.
No.
So it was pretty amazing. Yeah, just this absolute sense of freedom and possibility and joy and love. And it's just been amazing. It's just been amazing. Like, I've just have been feeling so coherent the whole time, except for one moment. And that was this morning.
There you go.
I re-got it. And then I re-got it. Yeah.
And you're in the process of getting your prosthesis on or made and so forth. So that's coming.
Yes. So people can see my little stumpy.
There you go. So I can't believe how flexible you are.
I know. It's really flexible. There's my kneecap there, and there's the rest. But yeah, so the stitches came out 2 weeks ago Friday. 2 weeks ago tomorrow. And I got casted for my initial prosthesis yesterday. So I get it next week, January the 5th, and off we go from there. So it's been 5 weeks as of yesterday, which again, I'm absolutely amazed. And with my type of personality like yours, we're drivers. We like to go. We like to give me a goal and I'll get it done.
Yeah.
And for me, I've dealt with this very differently. And the difference has been surrender, trust the moment, listen to your body, listen to the people around you, and just do what's right in this moment. And that has been such a gift, an absolute gift to be able to do that.
So Liz, like, last question. I mean, we could go on for over an hour here. How do you see this health challenge changing you as a human being? And what do you see in the future? And I know that I see it for you, that I know you're going to be on bigger stage. And when I say that, a chiropractic stage is still a big stage, but I get goosebumps just talking about it. The world is ready to hear your story. And because you're a chiropractor, I'm excited to see how that's going to unfold. But that's just me wishing. That's what are your thoughts?
So my thoughts, right? I mean, I've thought of different things with this, and it can go in many different ways. And I've had a number of people come to me and ask me to do some speaking about what I've learned and what I've gone through. And it's interesting for me because normally I would say yes. And what I've done is say, wait. If you can wait, I'm not going to make any decisions till February, March, and just really tune in with what I'm experiencing. So what I'm doing right now is I'm sort of chronicling my my journey, and some of it's on Facebook, some of it I'm just journaling by hand, and videos, a few things like that as well. And we'll just see what comes from it. I know that I have been in touch and connect a lot with the Amputee Coalition now. That has quite a number of members. And I guess if I was to look at anything, is what is going to be of highest service to different people. And I think there's some beautiful bridging that can be done, especially with people that are terrified with situations and what does it mean, and the whole world collapses. And I will say that, I mean, I was in a position where I chose to chop off my lower leg. Many people wake up with it and they have no choice. So I had time to mentally prepare. I'm also older, so I have a bit more, I'd like to think, more maturity. But there's also a lot of things I love to do, just like younger people. So I will definitely be into doing more of travel, more of the things that I love to do, like my yoga, my paddle boarding, and all that kind of journey stuff. And we'll see where else it goes. But I've got a lot of sort of ideas that are kind of floating around, and I just need to let them sort of crystallize a little bit more before I make some of those decisions. And that's a lesson for me too, versus just jumping into something.
Yeah, that is different. Because I think from where the work you've done and where you're coming from as a chiropractor, you have a lot to share with the people that are going through similar situation and how to apply. So I think being a chiropractor, I think was a plus, you know, for you on that front. Not to say that you didn't put in the work to get bigger. So thank you so much, Liz, for sharing your knowledge, your wisdom, and your heart with us. So this now concludes our last show for the 2017 season. And I would like to wish everyone an awesome 2018. Tune in for our next show on January 4th, Thursday as well at 1 o'clock with Dr. Nicole Lindsay. And until next time, this was Dr. Nathalie Beauchamp with Empowering Women in Chiropractic. Thank you.
Join us each week as we bring you the best in business growth, practice management, social media marketing, networking, leadership, and lots more. If it's about women in practice and business, you'll hear it here. We hope you enjoyed this week's Facebook Live event. Please like us on Facebook, comment, and share. We look forward to seeing all of you next week for another episode of Empowering Women in Chiropractic. Now, go ahead and hit the share button and tell your friends and colleagues about the show. Thank you for watching. Have a beautiful day. This has been a ChiroSecure production.